The revolutions in the countries of Tunisia, Egypt, Libya, and Syria all started because of similar economic and population growth progressions. In the early 2000s, these countries had large growth within their middle income population. This growth created a large group of ambitious youth who were out of work and wanting more. The youth found new ways to let the leadership of their countries know that they would be heard. The use of social media sites as a way to spread uncensored news and video footage became a way to rally and unite the youth and other citizens into action. In time, this movement became known as the Arab Spring. Starting in Tanzania as early as 2008, there were food riots in the country as the increase in the price of food had exceeded the increase in living wages. People were unemployed and looking to the leadership of the country to improve their situation. The leader of Tanzania, Ben Ali, was using the subsidies that were for the people to improve the lives of his personal friend and political allies. The general population was not seeing any improvement. Historian Jack Stone says that as Ben Ali found it harder to rely on broad economic growth or subsidies to retain popular support, his police grew increasingly intrusive and domineering. On December 27, 2010, villager Mohammed Bawazi had been attacked by one of these police officers. He had been selling fruit out of a cart when the police asked to see his permit. He did not have one, and the police confiscated the contents of his cart and went on to humiliate Mohammed. In a sign of protest after the authorities would do nothing about the harassment that he had received, the villager lit himself on fire outside the local police station. The day after this act of self-immolation, peaceful protesters gathered outside the police station. The police officer shot into the crowd, killing several protesters. The government tried to conceal this act with roadblocks to keep onlookers out and by censoring the local media. They did not, however, block Facebook, as this was seen as only a social media site. Local citizens with footage of the attack posted their videos on Facebook, and soon the videos were seen across the Arab world. This footage prompted other protests, which were again met with the same brutality. The citizens again took to Facebook to help spread the word of these attacks and caught the attention of not only the Arab world but the world in general. Upon hearing of these attacks, the U.S. and France, who were allies of Ben Ali, would no longer support Ben Ali and his brutal treatment of his citizens by his police forces. Gladstone states, by early January, it was clear that Ben Ali's only hope was to use his army to restore order. However, General Rashid Amar told Ben Ali that the army was a professional force and would not shoot at Tanzanian citizens. In January of 2011, just a month short of the act by Benzwai, Ben Ali and his family fled to Saudi Arabia. In Egypt, Mubarak, with his military background, large police force, and highly trained military forces, rejected the idea that revolution of the people would come to Egypt. Egypt had been living in a state of military emergency, and Mubarak felt that he had tight control of the people. In June of 2010, a protester was arrested and beaten to death. Here, as in Tanzania, people took to Facebook circulating horrific pictures of the protester and creating an online community. This was not enough, however, to ignite the Egyptians as a whole. On January 25, 2011, on Police Day, protesters gathered at Tahrir Square and other central locations. Police forces were prepared. Gladstone states, what differed in the days following January 25th was not the initial protests, but the willingness of vast numbers of ordinary Egyptians to join the vanguard of youth protesters. Armed with the knowledge of the success of Tanzania, Egyptians began to believe that they could do this as well. Tens of thousands of people descended upon the square, and the armed forces, unwilling to fire on its citizens, it had no recourse but to oust Mubarak from leadership. This was not the end of the struggle in Egypt, but they now had the knowledge that there was power when they were united for change. Libya's ruler Muammar Gaddafi was another military leader. He ruled by decree and controlled all decisions. He did support secondary and university education. Most of the subsidies that he instituted did go to his close circle of friends and family, while the rest of the nation dealt with unemployment and low wages. In February of 2011, protests started in Benghazi with peaceful pro-democracy protests. Gaddafi ordered his army to fire, and hundreds of people were killed in the first week. Many in the National Army refused to participate and stayed in their barracks or defected to the rebel side. But Gaddafi had a private army that he financed with all of his oil profits. It was this army that he used to attack citizens. On February 20th, as the National Army remained in the barracks, the people in Benghazi were able to control the city. Other cities did not have such luck as Gaddafi's paid mercenaries beat cities into submission through air and ground strikes. As Gaddafi was on his way to reclaim Benghazi, social media was once again used to alert the world of the actions taking place in Libya. Gladstone writes, thanks to satellite television and social media, the whole world was watching and sympathizing with the rebels. On March 18th, the UN Security Council passed a resolution authorizing the use of force to stop the killing. After many months of fighting, Gaddafi was finally captured and killed in October. In Syria, the ruler Bashar al-Assad, like Ben Ali of Egypt, felt that revolution would not come to his country. Assad had packed the military with those loyal to his officers. His citizens, who were armed with the knowledge of the other Arab revolutions and having seen NATO step in Egypt, started peaceful, non-violent demonstrations. Gladstone writes, had Assad shown restraint, perhaps the movement could have been contained. But as in Tanzania, the regime's indiscriminate and brutal response to initial protests captured on YouTube and spread by overseas Syrians anxious to see regime change quickly spread across the country on satellite television. Here, as in several other countries, there were parts of the army that would not shoot citizens. In some cases, this led to members being shot by a commander or defection by the soldiers. Syria used artillery, planes, bombs, and special forces in areas where rebels were protesting. It was soon apparent that peaceful demonstrations would not work against Assad. The protesters began finding weapons and used the military defectors as soldiers to fight a civil war. Goldstone states by early 2013 the struggle in Syria had become a major civil war with tens of thousands killed, sectarian conflicts inflamed, and jihadists moving into local power vacuums. All of these nations found that they could use social media as a way of getting uncensored information out to the citizens of their countries and citizens of the world. News of what was happening was able to be spread faster and be uncensored by the governments.